Welcome to Bamfordrose. Now recently we shot a video outlining the 10 biggest repair bill generators for this era of Aston Martin road car. Number 1 was V12 primary catalyst failure. Number 2 was the breather valve circuit failure on that V12 engine. This is where the valves within the pipework stay open. Droplets of oil can get carried over with normal breathing gas and the engine can slowly consume its oil unbeknown to the driver, and then the engine seizes up because of low oil volume level. So check us out in this video where we go through V12 primary cat failure and breather circuit failure. Now today's focus is on a DB9 that's in for regular service. One of the things that's really important to check at regular service is misfire. Now this DB9 is ticking over right now, you can probably hear it in the background, really smoothly. And at idle, you could be convinced to think that everything is okay and there's no need to go and do any further in-depth checks. Now there's no check emissions light on the dashboard, and if this was in for service, somewhere that just put the car on the ramp and changed the oil and filter and called that a service, we know what those shops look like, then this particular problem would be left uncovered. And yeah, you can see in a moment when we go and have a look on a laptop that this is one of those issues that at service it could have been found, it could have been fixed, preventative measures could have been taken, but if it's left to fester, then ultimately this can end up in something catastrophic happening to the engine, destroying the engine and needing a rebuild, when if someone at service just did their job properly, then it all could have been avoided. So let's go over to the DB9 and have a look at how it's behaving on the laptop. So this is the DB9 we've got in for service. Really nice early condition car, this one. It's the original seat version. It's 450 horsepower. It's in really nice, really nice condition. Paint is good. Interior is good. Mechanics on this car fairly good also. It's been well serviced in a prior life. But let's go and have a look at the misfire on the laptop. Now, as we can probably hear, it's ticking over quite smoothly. I can just about hear a very light pattering in that exhaust note, indicating that something isn't quite right. Now, if you didn't delve any deeper than that, again, as I said, there's no aero lights on the dashboard. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with how it drives. You could service this car and it would actually leave the workshop fully serviced, but harbouring quite a severe problem. So we've got AMDS hooked up already, and you can see from cylinders 7, 8, 9, 10 that there's been some misfire counts, but I've allowed this to run for long enough so that if you look at type A misfire rate, it's pretty much 0 across all cylinders. So for quite some time this engine's been running without any misfire being detected. So you can see engine speed in the bottom left corner there. What we're going to do now is raise it up, and we'll go to about 2,500 RPM and slightly load the engine up. So instantly there, you can see some type A misfires creeping in. You can see the counter for each cylinder increasing. You know, cylinder 10 there, it's got quite a bad misfire. So, you know, at this sort of speed, this is going to be a continuous motorway cruise. Now, you're never going to feel this level of misfire on a couple of cylinders. And the light on the dashboard is not going to come on, more than likely because it's in an area where the misfire monitor doesn't have to detect. the misfire type A rate isn't enough to trigger the misfire monitor. So as a driver, you're going to drive down on cruise control with this level of quite severe misfire occurring. So this is a factory exhaust manifold with the catalyst. Now, as you can see here, this runner is super short, and then the catalyst sits here. So when there's misfire, you've got unburnt fuel, high hydrocarbon content sitting on the face of this catalyst. Obviously, the flash point of the fuel is much lower than what this catalyst is running at. This is running about typically 800 degrees. So that high hydrocarbon content is going to sit on top of the face of the catalyst. That fuel is going to burn, explode, nibble away at the surface of the catalyst. Now, what happens, which people can't get their heads around, is that this V12 engine has got a huge purposefully set inlet to exhaust cam valve overlap. So what happens is there's an amount of suck back, which was designed. Someone wanted spent gas to be sucked back up into the combustion chamber, so it could dilute fresh air charge. It's called internal exhaust gas recirculation, and it reduces nitrous oxide emissions. So whilst it was purposefully set, a downside of that is if there was misfire, if it did fail this ceramic catalyst, which should be made out of metallic foil catalysts don't break up, ceramic catalysts do. Ceramic catalyst is a cost down. A metallic foil catalyst should have really been used in a primary location. So what happens is the unburnt fuel sits on the face of this catalyst, the catalyst breaks up, it nibbles away, and then the honeycomb matrix sort of fails because it's lost its structural, its support. It's being eaten away from the middle, and it's only mounted on the outside. And then big chunks of debris, ceramic debris, get sucked back up into the chamber. That ceramic debris scratches its way past the piston rings and liner, wears those beyond what can be recovered. That ceramic grinding paste drops into the sump, and then you've got ceramic grinding paste going around all of the bearing journals. So it's really best avoided. And if you look at the misfire monitor, the data that we just recorded on the laptop there, if you tease the data out, if you make the engine run in the conditions most susceptible to misfire, then spend a bit of time on the laptop, and then you can see that the engine is misfiring, where ordinarily, if you just listen to it at idle, if you didn't hold the engine in that condition, then you're never going to notice that it's misfiring in that way. So this is an early 2-pin coil car. Now the factory superseded to a 3-pin, a separately earth screened wire, for a reason to cut down on electrical interference. Now, partially misfiring 2-pin coil cars is really common, and this particular car has apparently had spark plugs and coils recently. Now I say recently because doesn't that look like only one side of the engine has done? There's hardly any misfire on cylinders 1 to 6, yet loads of misfires on 7 to 12. But on 2-pin coil cars, you can change the spark plugs and coils and still have, from electrical interference, no doubt, some amount of misfire present. So, fundamentally, spark plugs and coils on this, even though cylinders 7 to 12 is running a bit of misfire, when you load the engine up going up a hill, maybe 6 gear to 1000 RPM, slowly go on throttle, you can't feel a shudder in the chassis to indicate that there's a misfire going on. So, fundamentally, spark plugs and coils are okay. So, but there is some misfire that you can hear it in a bit of a popping out the exhaust, which is untoward. You don't really want that for the reasons that I've just said. Really, I wouldn't advise spark plugs and coils only as the fix, because if you got rid of the primary catalyst, then all of the risk of this condition is just gone. You could misfire forever and a day, and there'd be no consequence to it. So what I would do in cases like this is I would advise primary decat, remove it from the manifold. The way we do it, the manifold looks standard, so it doesn't look like it's been tampered with. Remap the engine management system so you get no errors on the dashboard. And then you've taken away the consequence of an engine running with a misfire. You could leave the spark plugs and coils alone until the day comes where you've got a really pronounced misfire on a particular cylinders or group of cylinders, and then you can change the spark plugs and coils then to fix an actual problem that you can feel. The risk of leaving it that late is if you've got your primary cat in place, because that level of misfire is going to fail the catalyst. Now, a service with Bamfordrose is about 6 or 7 hours on a car like this. Trays off, wheel arch liners out, clean everything. Obviously all the service consumables, everything changed. Good detailed look on misfire that we've done there. And then a report of stuff that is pretty urgent to change, stuff that might need changing for next MOT. You know, a good pragmatic approach to how the car's going to be used and what it's wise to change. Now, if you look at in the service book, you've probably got some service times stated, and a service, let's just say a garage that looks a heck of a lot more glossier than this one, it's going to take about 3 hours. Now, they put the car on a ramp speedily, they drain its fluids out speedily, someone else does the donkey work of cleaning. Your lead technician might give it a torch over and change its oil, but they're certainly going to miss subtleties like the misfire there that I've just said. And you know, unless you were looking deeper for it, why would you ever find it? There's no fault code on the dashboard. The engine isn't running rough to indicate to the driver that there's a misfire. So why would someone that takes 3 hours to do a service go searching for a really, really in-depth problem that's quite difficult to tease out? But that problem's so risky, and the damage that it can cause is so bad that, you know, that is what service is all about, teasing out those problems that are under the surface, which if a thorough service wasn't done, and a service was as some garages treat it, which is just a fluid change and a quick MOT sort of style inspection, then stuff would get missed and catastrophic failures would happen. So there you go, moral of this story, take those primary catalysts out. Fit a high flow secondary cat, you'll get a nice noise increase. Remap the ECU so there's no error lights on the dashboard. It's going to be about 30 brake horsepower increase minimum, nice sharper on throttle responsiveness. In terms of preserving your engine and making sure it never fails, then apart from catalyst failure, oil consumption and then oil starvation because someone never checked the oil level is pretty much the only other thing that takes these V12 motors outside of service. So that is going to be checking the breather circuit and checking that there's no oil consumption. You know, it's at some glossy garages, you can, this is where they win air filter bingo, if you've ever seen one of my videos on YouTube. So if you didn't look at the air filter to start with, how do you know if there's any oil consumption? And bang, there you go. You've gone in for a very, very expensive service at a very plush looking garage. They've missed oil consumption, they've missed misfire, two biggest reasons to fail an engine, and then due to a basic lack of care at service, you can be facing a 20 grand engine repair bill. So if you're yet to find us out on YouTube, head over to the Bamfordrose YouTube channel, click us a like, subscribe to the channel, and keep tuned on our social networks for more videos like this.